All right, like we said so many times, tonight is going to be Yud Beit and Yud Gimel Tammuz. And Yud Beit and Yud Gimel Tammuz, as we spoke before, was a very monumental occurrence in the history of the world. And it started really a whole new turnaround. The whole world turned the corner, so to speak, to the home stretch. Communism was ruling over Russia, ruled over people's minds. It was very promising. It was heaven on earth, utopia. Every man is going to work according to his ability, receive according to his needs. They had possibly the most beautiful sayings and slogans in communist Russia, and promises and visions, unlike perhaps anything that ever was in the history of the world. Anything in the history of the world. It was just a philosophy, just an idea. It wasn't that, Greece is going to rule the world, or Spain, or England, or whether we're going to rule this. It was just an idea. There was a practical idea. So they saw it. So they thought. Communism, it reached into every aspect of life, especially finance. And it was going to do away with all the problems of mankind. There's going to be equality. There won't be any oppression from the upper class to the lower class, and etc. And in order to do this, they opposed in every way religion in general, but especially Judaism. Especially Judaism. And why? Because what is communism? Communism says that everybody's going to be equal. There won't be rich, they're going to be poor, everybody will be equal. And it did provide that. Everybody became equally poor. That's also not true, because the leaders, they became very rich. Okay, let's not talk about the lacks of communism. Because the people who believe in communism even today, they won't listen to you anyway. They still believe it. It's amazing that they still believe it. And Judaism says that there has to be rich and poor people. There must be certain people that must be poor, and there's certain people that must be rich. And the reason is to enable the rich people to give charity to the poor people. That's the way it's supposed to be. They're supposed to, and the more charity a person gives, the more rich he becomes. And that's really what keeps society going. Love. According to communism, there's no love. There's no care about somebody else. The government takes care of everybody. The government is cold. They don't care. And you see how cold they were. He killed 20 million people and everybody loved him. That's the way things are. Some people say he killed 50 million people. Anyway, nobody dared to do anything against Stalin, or to speak against Stalin, or even to think against Stalin. One day, 500,000 people disappeared from the streets. The Hasidim used to walk around with their tefillin all the time, because they knew that at any moment they could be just taken away into prison. At least they would have their tefillin with them. Anyway, in this atmosphere of fear and insanity, as the Lubavitcher Rebbe stood up, and he was the only one that he arranged schools, secret schools in basements, in what's called the machteret, in tunnels, whatever. But there couldn't be more than 5 children at a school. And if they caught them, they would sometimes they would even kill the teacher on the spot. But for sure, they would send the teacher to Siberia or put him in prison. And the children, they would put them into an orphanage. And the parents, they would also send to prison, because they didn't send their children to communist schools. And no one would stand. And the previous Rebbe not only stood against Stalin, he encouraged people to send their children to these schools. And all the Hasidic Chabad today that came from Russia in those days were people whose parents defied. They had to make up excuses all the time why the children aren't in school, and etc. So they okay, let's go. Sufficient the Sipurim. This is in Likuti, Sichot, Daled. Beit, I'm sorry. Yeah. Is it? No. 1 second. I think it's Likuti, Sichot, Daled. I'm sorry. Daled. Yeah. Sufficient the Sipurim. Among the stories was the Rebbe, which the Rebbe, Bala Simcha, Vagula, the Rebbe, when he would speak in public, he would speak in Russian. The Rebbe knew like 20, 30 languages. The people told me they went in. Anyway, he knew a lot of languages, the Rebbe. But when he would speak in public, he would speak in Yiddish with certain rare exceptions. The Rebbe spoke in Russian a few times. Zwischen the Sipurim, among the stories, was the Rebbe, which the Rebbe, Bala Simcha Bagula, told Wegen sein Meiser regarding his imprisonment and his Geula. Now, this all happened in 1927, right? 1927. That he was imprisoned, and a little bit less than a month later, he was imprisoned, he was tortured, and he was sent to exile for 3 years, but he was released after just a week and something, 9 days. Wegen sein Meiser, one of the stories that tell is Fran Azelcha was der Zel, which is told about the time when the arrest was in its, how do you say, its power, right in the beginning of the arrest. I know from the Sipurim, one of the stories is like this: Bald vi men hat dem Rebbe reingeführt, immediately after the Rebbe was taken into Fisa in prison, hat bei sich gemacht a fester Beschluss. He had made by himself a firm resolution. As soll nicht chas v'shalom nicht verlieren, that he should not lose, und for sich the light from GPO, and that he by himself, the young men from the GPO, that was what was called the KGB in those days. There was the NKVD and the GPO. I don't know which one came first or second. Today, there's a saying, the secret police called Nit Nispalvan. He made a firm resolution that he would not be affected, be afraid, or do anything that his captors told him to do. Now, most of his captors were Jews, and they really wanted to kill him. They were really, really very disappointed, but they were like at the bottom of the totem pole. They had to take orders from whoever was above them. So the Rebbe was taken in the first night. They wanted to kill him, and there was some mix-up. The Rebbe writes about it, mix-up, and somehow or other he strayed off into this other place, and the time to kill him passed. And by the time they realized their mistake, it was already too late. And there was, from the world, there was coming complaints that why are you putting this man into prison? He's a holy man, and etc. So the communist government was afraid. They didn't want people to have a bad opinion about what they were doing. They kept it quiet, and all of a sudden, world opinion was standing in favor of the Rebbe and against them. So they wanted things to look good. And so they decided not to kill him. Okay, anyway, when the Rebbe went in, he made a firm decision that he was not going to be affected at all, not even in thought, not the slightest fear whatsoever from his police and these captors. Nit nor soll sich nit rechnen mit sie. Not only would he not make any calculations with them, take them into account, in Zachen v'zayin nogea zu Yireh Shamayim, regarding things which are regarding to Torah and commandments, right? If they tell him he has to do work on Shabbos, he will refuse. Not only that, nor el zeh bichlal nit halten for kein metzias. He would treat them as though they didn't exist at all. Bizer hat oiv zeh geguckt wie a Volten Zion, Belashon Arab, Ka'ain Vefes, like they're nothing. Like it's like a dream or something. You don't pay any attention to it. Now, this was a totally crazy thing to do, because usually you get in a situation like that as you're afraid. I mean, they were killing people all the time. He explains that one of the nights he was in prison, as he would hear every like 5-10 minutes, a door would open up, one of the doors would open up, a name would be called out, the person would start screaming and lying and crying, please have mercy, have mercy. Then there would be a shot, and everything was quiet. And then 10 minutes later, another door would open up, somebody's name would be called out, the person would start crying, screaming, please, begging, a shot, quiet. He said that went on the whole night. And nevertheless, the Rebbe made up in his mind that he was not going to be afraid at all. Not only to be afraid, not to reckon with them at all, like they didn't exist. We'll see. Their matzav nefesh, this, how do you say, attitude, hat sich bei ihm nicht geändert, euch nur nachdem, wie is schon bestoffen. Even after he was punished for nit willen anfallen, for not answering oiv zaira shaila their questions. They'd ask him a question, he wouldn't answer. The straf is given, the punishment was as men hat im far spart in a keller. They put him into a small like cellar, was is given angefielt mit gewese hoich mit blotter. It was like up to his knees or whatever in mud. And it was small. And he, okay, we'll see. Was zu entfernen sich is nicht gewesen. In order to ansparen, in order to lay down or to rest, he couldn't rest. Der zu seinen in der Blotte und auf der Wand herumgekracht Achbarim Ramoshim, said that there were rats and all sorts of strange bugs and things going up the walls. So he couldn't rest on it. Und in other clearer keller, and in that cellar, Kargan Ne'esleis, he was there for 1 full day. So he couldn't lay down, he couldn't sleep. When they took him, it was also in the middle of the night. But even after that, is by him, als geblieben, the starke Hachlata, there was a strong decision, as soll sich nicht rechnen mit sie, he would not consider them at all, wie sein Kain be'efes mars, like they're nothing. So they put him there for 1 full day. They took him out and they said, now are you willing to cooperate with us? Willing to cooperate? Hey, willing to cooperate? Still not answering. Didn't say anything. Now at that point, they could have just killed him. But he figured, the Rebbe did not do this for any practical reasons. He didn't say, listen, if they're going to kill me, so, they're going to kill me anyway. So why should I give in to them? I'm not going to bow down to them. Doesn't make any difference. They kill people no matter what you do. That wasn't his consideration whatsoever. His consideration was, these people are evil. Evil doesn't exist. I'm not going to pay any attention to them. Right? Evil cannot have any effect on my free will. Right? They're not going to change me for a bit. You'll see how far this gets. It's really something quite amazing. And their tefisa kamer in the cell, wo the Rebbe is gesetzt, and what he said, hat men nicht gekannt unterscheiden. You couldn't make any difference between day and night. While in their kamer, in that room, is given nicht mehr via mi ver ein kleiner Fenster. There was a small window under the steller, under the ceiling. And that window, it only went into the hall. Und euch die Fenster in that window is given verstellt. It was covered mit a kegene berdiger Wand. It was with a wall that was opposite it, and it was the window opened up into the only window in his cell opened up into the hall, and there was no windows in the hall, so he never knew. Was hat zum cheder nit zugelassen, the licht that didn't let any light in from the daytime. Nor Leut dem eingestellte seder, but because of the order in the prison, is the bestimmte Stunden. They had a regular order to bring varmus, warm water, and etc., and food, whatever. Hat the Rebbe Kavus zu mavchin, he could understand what's the difference between day and night. Donnerstag, on Thursday, Rosh Chodesh Tammuz, Elef HaZeger at 11 o'clock, Farmitag in the afternoon, is the Sipur. The story is the Rebbe had zugegeben on a klal, fleck the air in Turma, Davenen, Barichas. He said the fact is that when he was there, they allowed him to have his tefillin. That's also a whole story on itself, how they beat him up. Anyway, they allowed him to have his tefillin, and he would pray at great length. Would pray in great length. As Zain and Arangikon, there came soldiers in Zain Simmer in the room. 1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute. In the room, and they ordered him to stand up. Is this going to work for me? Yes, very good. Oh, good. And they ordered him to upgestellt, to standing. The Shotrin, the soldiers they spoke Russian. But the Rebbe, the way he did things was he would answer them only in Yiddish. Hat geantwortet as wird sich nicht abstellen. He says, I'm not going to stand up. He said, stand up. He said, I'm not going to stand. And he said in Yiddish. In this prison is given eingeführt as Beshas Migit Eber arrested episode Yediyah. The order of things was that when an order or a news, whatever, would be given to a prisoner, as he had to stand up. He had to stand up. Das hat gedarft wesen, he had to know, as der arrested is unterwerfen sein Herrschaft, that he was now just, utilizing his rulership, his power, that the policeman, und dafür hat them the Rebbe nicht gewollt aufstehen. He said, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to stand up. Not going to stand up. If you want just to ask a favor, something like that, no problem. But you're giving me orders. I'm not taking any orders. Weitois, so it comes out as einer from it comes out that one of the soldiers was a Jew. Was hat verstanden dem Antwort from the Yiddish. He understood the Yiddish answer from the Rebbe. Or if them Rebbe's answer, he said, zu im weiter gesagt. They said in Russian, Oib du wirst nicht folgen. If you won't follow our orders, wollen mir dich schlagen. Then we're going to hit you. Right? I'll punch you. Hat the Rebbe answered, no. He said, that's what you're going to do. Do it. I'm not going to do what you say. The Shotrim of Taka Azoi haben gesagt, they did what they said. Und seinen Royce from Cheder, they beat the Rebbe and they left. Später, afterwards, is a reingekommen, a zweiter Gruppe. There's another group of policemen. And zwischen welches is euch Lulav. There was one that was called Lulav. Lulav was one of his einer from the was haben sie betätigt in the arrested from Rebbe. They were one of those soldiers that came and arrested the Rebbe. The ones that arrested the Rebbe, those were Jews which were in a group called the Yevtsektia. Is bringing him to Tfisa. They were the ones. He was one of those that arrested him. Lulav had gestammt from Hasidim. He came from Hasidim. I think also from Chabad Hasidim. I'm not sure. Und hat sein Raid zum Rebbe angeheuben mit dem Wort Rebbe. He came in and they give orders. The Rebbe said, he answered in Yiddish, I'm not answering. He said, Rebbe. Listen to them, Rebbe, he said, Rebbe. When he said, as soon as he said Rebbe, he says, Rebbe, was verführt ihr sich mit sie? What are you making a war with them? Was macht ihr mit sie Machzakos. What are you trying to defy them? They kommen doch euch. They're coming in and zugen a farlichtige. They're coming to tell you good news. They wanted to come and tell him that he was not going to be killed. They were going to send him in exile. Is as meheist euch stellen sich. They just want you to stand up. As darf sich sich oif stellen. When they say stand up, right? What's your problem? Rebbe, don't you realize that you're just hurting yourself? They want to tell you good news. The Rebbe said back, oif them, he said, Hatalulu said, Velen ze doch euch schlagen. They also want to beat me up. Aber euch oif them hat the Rebbe nit geämpfert. No, Lulav said, you want them to hit you again? The Rebbe also didn't answer. Haben sie ihn noch einmal schlagen. They hit him again. Einer from ze hat ihm gegeben a klap tachat the center. One of them hit him under the chin, unter dem chin, right? Under his chin was their vetek, the pain from the Rebbe. He said he felt a long time afterwards that. And they left. Euch dernach, even afterwards, when sie is gekommen, another group, a third time, euch zwischen sie is given also a Jew with the name of Kavalov. As un im gehesen, they said he should stand up, that the Rebbe answered as vet sich nit. He says, I'm not going to do anything you say. Give me as many orders as you want to. I'm not following any of your orders. You're not going to rule over me at all. Man hat im weder geschlagen, they hit him. There was hat geschlagen is given the Kavalov, the Jew, Kavalov, he was the one that hit him. Aber es hat garnet geholfen, it didn't help at all. Kavalov is a Rhine in Ritzicha. All of a sudden he went into a terrible, murderous rage. And he said, in Russian, mit tevbia gewutscht, anachnu nilamed otchem. Anachnu nilamed otchem. As a Rebbe Omar b'Yiddish, nira mi melamed mi. Es vandet sich ver nira mi yilamed mi. Mi morekan mi a talmid. All the Jews, by the way, that participated, they all got killed. Stalin wiped out the whole KVD, the whole Yevsektia. He wiped them all out. Like right in the beginning of the war, I think he wiped them all out. A geweset Zeit später, a little bit later, seine reingekommen Shotrim, there came soldiers, when Obenim gesagt, and they said, as soll reingehen in Kat into the office. As dort had men in eingesucht, they took him into the office and they gave him the announcement that Farlichten, that your sentence has been what do you say, not rescinded. There's a word for it. Anyway, you begin given a lighter sentence. Was the Farlichten was Lul. This is what they had said before, that he was going to be sent from the prison, or for spirit, and he was going to go for 3 years of exile in Kastrama. When the Rebbe was in that, looked on the table, as he saw that there was on the table a paper that said Dayale, says Kais. Anyway, this is the case. This is his case. Or if then the paper it said bemarkt and angeschrieben Shura was is given oisgeschlagen. There was a line written and it was crossed out. And there, one second. Is written, first of all, it is written, what's the punishment? It was the punishment. There was Rebbe's name was written, and it was written, what's the punishment? And it said death. But then it was crossed out. That was crossed out. Then after that, the Rebbe said that other nit gewalt a rois Zagen B'dibur. He didn't want to say the word death. He didn't want to say it. The opposite of life. Then after that, there was another one. Weiter later is another which is said, no, not death, but it will be 10 years in another place called Kataga, a terrible place, 10 years. On that, there was also written, niet, not, no. And finally, it says 3 years in Kostroma. When they told the Rebbe that it was going to be 3 years in Kostroma, so they said to him, gefragt, mit welcher Bahn, which train do you want to go on? So he said he wants to go on first class. That's what he said. They said, did you have enough money to go first class? First class? Well, what it was is they said that he could go home. He could go home for 6 hours. And then, because they wanted to make a good impression on the world, they were afraid. All of a sudden, miraculously, they were afraid. They could have just said, oh, there was a mistake. We wanted to, but it was a mistake. They could have said nothing. They could have said nothing whatsoever. We don't know what happened to him. We don't know. Maybe he escaped, right? He was in their power. Nobody, the Hasidim had no idea what was happening. So they said, okay, you're going to go and you can go on in the train. Which, you want to go on a regular train? Maybe he says, we'll pay for it. He said, no, I want to go first class. I said, you have enough money? He said, you have enough money? He said, I have the money that you took from me when you brought me in to get, if that's not enough, is I'm going to go home. My family will. So they agreed. They said, okay. But then the Rebbe asked a question. This was Thursday. The Rebbe asked a question, Ven vet. What am I doing? Oh. So he asked the question, 1 second, if I leave today, it's Thursday. When am I going to arrive in Kostroma? It was a day's journey. Their own common Kostroma. So they said, well, you're going to leave, you're going to arrive there on Friday in the afternoon. It was already Thursday at night. It was in the evening. So they said, Friday in the evening, you're going to arrive. It says, Friday, you're going to come on Shabbos. The Rebbe had oiv them gesagt. He said, a Shabbos vetter b'shum ofen nitfaran. He says, he's not going to travel on Shabbos. You're not going to affect my, now according to Torah law, he could have gone on Shabbos. It was every second that he was in the prison, he was in danger of death. But he wanted to impress on them that they had no power over his Judaism whatsoever. And Dar Sipo, when he said the story, the Rebbe said in the end, Baruch Hashem, God, thank God that I didn't have to travel on Shabbos. Ich bin geblieben, that they told him, okay, go, so you'll stay in the prison. You'll stay in the prison until Sunday. Sunday, that was Gimel Tammuz. That's when the Rebbe got out. The Baal does Donnerstick because Thursday was he didn't want to travel und zu verbleiben and länger. He said to them, okay, so listen, let me stay by my house for a longer time. No, that they couldn't do either. The law was you have 6 hours to be at home and no longer. The only way that you can travel on another day, except for the day we tell you, is if you stay in prison. He said, okay. Hatman im Farhalten and Tefisa, the only person in the history of the world that remained in communist prison from his own free will. And the daytime he traveled. This story, so Michael Dworkin said that when there was another chassid, that he went to this place, Kostroma, before the Rebbe. In other words, what does it mean that the Rebbe had total rulership over them? Total rulership. The same way as nobody could get out of prison that was supposed to be in. Also, no one could get in that was supposed to be out. And here the Rebbe got out of prison against their will. And now he wanted to go back into prison all because of Shabbos. As we're going to talk about more, God willing, next, tomorrow. Do the Yom Yom. The Yom Yom we're going to do today at 3:00. I have an appointment to go to, and I have to be there now. So God bless you. Have a good day with Moshiach now.